As we gather today, let us remember that we in the Diocese of Northern Michigan acknowledge the sacred land where we work, live, teach, learn, and build community. This land is the territory of the Anishinaabe people. We recognize the repeated violations of sovereignty, territory, and water perpetrated by European and other settlers that have impacted the original inhabitants of this land. We extend our respect to citizens of these First Nations people who live here and their ancestors who have lived here for over 500 generations, and to all Indigenous people. We also know that this acknowledgement is insufficient. It does not undo the harm that has been done and continues to be perpetrated now against Indigenous people, their land, air, and water.
When the storms of life are raging, stand by me, stand by me. When the storms of life are raging, stand by me, stand by me. When the world is tossing me like a ship upon the sea, thou who rulest wind and water, stand by me, stand by me. In the midst of tribulation, stand by me, stand by me. In the midst of tribulation, stand by me, stand by me. When the host of hell assail and my strength begins to fail, thou who never lost a battle, stand by me, stand by me. In the midst of faults and failures, stand by me, stand by me. In the midst of faults and failures, stand by me, stand by me. When I do the best I can and my friends don't understand, thou who knowest all about me, stand by me, stand by me. When I start, now when I'm pushed up to my limit, stand by me, stand by me. When I'm pushed up to my limit, stand by me, stand by me. When I think that's all I've got and you whisper that it's not, thou whose comfort can renew me, stand by me, stand by me. When I think that's all I got and you whisper that it's not, thou whose comfort can renew me, stand by me, stand by me.
Good morning. Our reading this morning comes from Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time, the boat, battered by waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning, he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. He said, Come. So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, You of little faith, why did you doubt? When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, Truly, you are the Son of God. Here ends the reading. Well, that's a pretty action-packed story for us to work with this morning. And I'm hoping, as someone who has just gone through an experience that I thought would sink me, and having found this story comforting, I'm hoping that by the time we're done this morning, maybe some of you can take this story as a comfort too, as you approach experiences that you believe will sink you. I've been very fortunate in life in that I had two very stable parents who just this spring celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary and who are to me the anchors of my world and have become very, very good friends, even as I'm still their daughter, into adulthood. However, this spring, I also lost my father, something that I thought would end me. I spent most of my life telling myself that would be it. If I were to lose one of these two people, or both of them, that will be it. I cannot exist without them. Even though I could see around me evidence that people existed just fine without one or both of their parents, I knew for me it was the end. Well, clearly it wasn't. Here I am. And part of that has to do with my faith. And part of that has to do with an icon of Jesus reaching out to Peter in the water and pulling him up and saying, You of little faith, why did you doubt? So let's take this story apart, and maybe by the time we're done, this will be a helpful tool for you as well. This story takes place right after Jesus has fed the 5,000 people with just a couple of loaves and a few fish, and he and the disciples are probably pretty tired. He's going off to pray by himself, and he sends them out in a boat. They're all going to have some alone time and hopefully some peaceful experience. But as people of the water, living as close as we do to these big lakes, we understand that water can turn from a nice afternoon's entertainment into a dangerous situation fairly quickly. And these disciples, being raised also near water, and many of them fishermen, um, would also be familiar with that experience. And this was apparently a bad enough storm that they were all very frightened, and already tired, having fought the winds all night. And they're in the bottom of the boat, and any good scary movie producer knows that the thing that scares us the most is when we're already scared and something weird happens and it scares us even more, and they can build on the scariness. Well, that's what happens here. They're already scared, they're already nervous, they're already tense, and here comes this unexpected sight. Someone walking to them across the water, and they're scared. It's a ghost! Ah! Well, Jesus immediately speaks to them, but he doesn't speak just to their ears. He speaks, he says, It is me. But he speaks those words using the words that God uses to identify God's self in Hebrew scripture that these men would have been familiar with. It is I. He is speaking not just to their ears, but to their hearts and to their spirits. It's me. And As he so often does, Peter chimes in and says, "Oh, if it is you, just pull me out there with you and I'll walk to you on the water." Now, the only other place in the Bible where I've seen a similar story to this is when Jesus is in the wilderness and Satan says, "If you're the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. If you're the Son of God, throw yourself off the top of the temple." And those requests are not met quite as readily as Peter's request is here. "If you are who you say you are, call me to walk to you across the water, and I'll be able to do it." Well, I've asked myself over and over why this doesn't get Peter his comeuppance, which he'll get later on. He does get a "get thee behind me, Satan" a little later on, but he's not getting it today because I think Peter is testing himself and his own faith more than he is testing Jesus at this moment in time. Just call me out there and I know I'll be able to do it. And Peter starts to walk and he gets there almost, and then we hear that the wind distracts him and his fear of the wind causes him to take his focus from Jesus and he sinks into the water and says, "Oh no, keep me." Jesus is there. It says, "Why did you doubt? Why did you doubt that I would be there to help you?" What does doubt feel like from the inside? What does it feel like when you doubt, when you're so worried or so fearful? Maybe that's just exactly what it is worry and fear or pressure from someone outside ourselves saying, "How in the world can you believe that craziness?" Our inability maybe to see what is most important at that moment. Peter's most important focus at that moment was on Jesus, but he was distracted by fear. Maybe fear will sink us. But Peter wanted to test it. He said, "Let's go. Call me out." Jesus says to him when it's over, "Why did you doubt?" Jesus will never leave us. He didn't let Peter sink to the bottom, even though he was a little presumptuous to be asking for the ability to walk on water. He didn't let him sink to the bottom. He reached out and pulled him close. "I am with you always," Jesus says, "to the end of the age. No matter what crazy stunts you pull, I am with you always." Doesn't mean that you're not going to go through some rough times. It doesn't mean you get to keep your parents with you forever. But it means that I'm there with you, Jesus says. I am there. You are not alone. And as you feel that you are about to go under, as you are certain that you're going to go under, my hand will be there and I will sustain you. "You of little faith," he says to Peter. Peter, this is Peter. This is the rock on which the church is going to be built. This is Peter. You of little faith. That should be heartening to all of us because all of us, to one degree or another, are people of little faith. There are times when our faith is pretty squinky. And there are times when we feel like Peter felt, that just call us in there and we'll get out of the boat and it'll be great. I know, I just feel it today. I can walk on that water. What I learned about experiences that you think are going to sink you is that sometimes in those times, a little faith is a lot better than no faith. Sometimes faith is just taking the next breath. Sometimes faith is taking the following breath. and feeling that breath turn into a minute or 5 minutes or suddenly 15 minutes. An hour has gone by and you're still there. You are not sunk yet. Sometimes faith is just taking the next step. Faith unleashes for us something that is beyond our understanding. If we're able to let go of all the human things that limit the way we think, the things that we can observe and measure and count and create laws and rules about, if we can open our minds to the possibility that the creator of this amazing universe that we inhabit is capable of more than we can conceive of in our minds, that almost belief in something supernatural, something beyond our human capacity, that's something that faith can give us a little peek into. Sometimes more peek than we want, but sometimes a little peek into that strength and being able to tap into that and understand that that is out there beyond us, holding us as well, and that is the creator in action in our lives. Sometimes that's enough. So how do we get there? When we're in that moment, when we're in the boat, when we feel like everything is going to tip over in a moment and we're going to sink to the bottom. Or when we've done something crazy like step outside the boat and go, yes, my faith is going to carry me through. And suddenly we realize, oh, crud, I'm standing on the water now and now I'm going down. We can do exactly what Peter did. We can say, Lord, help me. And then we can take a lesson from the beginning of this whole story and take ourselves out of the pressure and out of the company of others and out of the stressful situations that we are often in our day-to-day lives, and find a spot where we can, as Jesus did, go to pray, or as the guys did, go in the boat and be away from everyone. Now, granted, they had a harrowing experience, but at the end, what were they doing? They weren't worried at the end of their harrowing experience. They came out of it praising God and being thankful that they were all safe together. We can do that. We can find that spot. We can immerse ourselves in the beauty of creation, connect to something larger, clear our heads, and the most important thing of all is to let ourselves turn and begin again. You know, Peter could have fallen in the water, let Jesus put him back in the boat, and then gone to the front of the boat and sat there in his wet clothes and sulked and said to himself, why did he let me get wet? Why did he even bother to pull me out? Why am I sitting here right now? This didn't go the way I wanted. Here I was going to prove my faith, and somebody said, oh, you have little faith. But Peter didn't do that. Peter turned and began again, dried himself off, took another shot at being faithful. And that taking another shot at being faithful, taking another breath, taking another look, taking another step, is the first step to getting through when we feel like we're alone. It's that first step back to where Jesus is standing, saying, take heart. Why did you doubt that I was here? And then, what's the response that the disciples in the boat had? They said, thank you. Thank you, Creator God, for being here with each of us as we walk through our lives. Thank you, and I hope you have a peaceful week.
take a walk with me. Oh, take a walk with me. And Spirit guide my feet. Fear, take a walk with me. Fear, take a walk with me. Fear, take a walk with me. And Spirit guide my feet. Faith, take a walk with me. Faith, take a walk with me. Faith, take a walk with me. And Spirit guide my feet. Joy, take a walk with me. Joy, take a walk with me. Joy, take a walk with me. And the Spirit guide my feet. And the Spirit guide my feet. And the Spirit guide my feet.